Welcome back. Now, one of the top performance indicators for stock markets is movement, that is looking at the volumes. MTN Uganda yesterday came out as a top mover, though there was no movement in price. And this is very possible sometimes in case people, depending on what prices the people are willing to buy the stock at. And so yesterday MTN traded a total of over 183,000 shares. And despite the fact that it came out as a top mover, the price remained constant. Now, like I say, these prices definitely depend on the demand and supply. But the Uganda Securities Exchange leaves a window of 15% for prices to be shifted, depending on the desires and interests of the clients or even the shareholders themselves. And so yesterday, this counter traded at exactly 190 shillings, the opening price, and closed at exactly the same price, but with a movement of over 183,000 shares that were traded on the MTN stock. Now, MTN, as you all know, is the second most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. By now, you should know that definitely because it has over 4.26 trillion worth of shares on the exchange. The most valuable company, that is Equity Bank Limited, has about 5.02 trillion, and MTN comes in the second place with 4.26 trillion, and the number of shares outstanding is 22.4 billion. So to come up with this figure of 4.26 trillion, you multiply by the 22.4 billion value of the outstanding shares times the current market price over 190 Ugandan shillings to come to 4.26 trillion Ugandan shillings. And this 4.26 trillion represent about 18.6% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. The company has been doing quite well within the last few days and weeks as well. And however, when we compare it, the opening price for the year, that is 194.99 Ugandan shillings per share on the 1st of January. We compare that with 190. The company is still on a year-to-date loss of 2.56%, and it ranks number 7, or the 7th in terms of year-to-date performance on the Uganda Securities Exchange. In terms of traded volumes, it comes behind Stanbic Bank Uganda in the 4th position as the 4th most traded stock. Now we have 4 of them now. You see, we had the most traded stock, that is Bank of Baroda. The second most traded stock was Wumeme within the last 3 months. The 3rd most traded stock was Stanbic Bank Uganda. And now the 4th most traded stock is MTN Uganda. And it's evident by the volume they have been able to trade since the May 13th date to yesterday, that is 17th of August. And within this period, they have traded a total of 11.8 million shares and a volume high of over 2.11 million, which was recorded on the 12th of July within the same period. Now, these 11.8 million shares are valued at 2.2 billion Ugandan shillings over the period, and the volumes traded on average per trading session is 187,297 shares per trading session on average. That is on the counter of MTN. And when you look at their volume subsequently within the last couple of days, they have been trading on each and every single day with their recent trade of 183,000 yesterday, on top of which they had the day before 9,431, And then on Tuesday, we had, on Monday actually, we had 45,702, while on Friday last week, we had 15,800. So in terms of activity, they're coming really on the edge. They are one of the most active counters, at least trading a little volume on a single day for all these past days, at least for this week and last week. In terms of 1 week performance, they have been able to gain 2.7%, and in terms of 3 months, they have been able to gain 2.15%, whereas in the terms of 6 months, we have seen a gain of over 5.78%, but a year-to-date loss of 2.56% in as regards the comparison between the 1st of January debt, that is the market price that closed 1st January, to yesterday's market price. Is it a tradable stock? Yes, it is. Not so expensive, not so cheap, at 190 shillings, the youngest company on the exchange. So yes, you should consider buying some stock there for your own good at MTN Uganda, a profitable company that has proved, of course, to be resilient on the stock market despite whatsoever is happening in terms of the economics of the region. And definitely the top administration will be changing, and has already changed actually. And the former CEO now, Mr. Wim van Helput, was appointed to become manager of the same company across West African countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, and other countries within the West African region. And of course, we are now having Miss Livia from the Safaricom company, and now is currently now the CEO for the company, as we all know. Let's move on now to we can look at, for example, we can look at Equity Bank Limited, who came out as a gainer as well at 4.09%. Did he trade any volumes? Not really. He is the most valuable stock on the stock market, and currently, because of the gain, he gained by 64.96 Ugandan shillings, closing with a price of 1,653 Ugandan shillings. And that was a 4.09% daily gain. And yesterday, his market capitalization went up. Remember, market capitalization is relative depending on the current stock price and the shares outstanding. Of course, the shares outstanding are fixed, but the market prices keep changing, and that changes the market capitalization as well. His market capitalization right now stands at 6.12 trillion Ugandan shillings, and this makes about 26.7% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. And when you look at the shares outstanding, they have over 3.7 billion shares on the equity stock, and they haven't had any trading recently, at least. And in terms of trading, they're not doing so well, and that's a problem here on the cross-listed equities from Kenya. You rarely find as much activity compared to the domestic equities, and compared to the same equities back on their domestic exchange, that is Nairobi Securities Exchange. So it's something here. We didn't have any volumes trading on Equity Bank Limited. However, we did have that price shift, which moved the market capitalization up to 6.17 trillion Ugandan shillings on the entire market. And they are dealing in the financial services sector, so definitely their competitors are Stanbic, KCB, and these competitors are of course doing comparatively well compared to Equity Bank. In terms of year-to-date, for example, KCB is at 3.92%, whereas Bank of Baroda is at 11%, and you can keep comparing that to their loss as well on the stock market. So Equity Bank is currently still one of the companies that still need to find some activity if it is to outperform at least these other stocks, especially in the financial services sector. Looking at Bank of Baroda, you're looking at Stanbic. Those are very active counters compared to Equity Bank at the moment. Let's look at the entire overview of the market. Like I've said, only 3 listed companies were able to sell and buy shares, and that was Stanbic Bank, MTN, and Bank of Baroda. We had other counters that were unable to trade, and we can now look at their prices. Currently, British American Tobacco Uganda trades its stock at 15,000 Ugandan shillings only. Bank of Baroda, after yesterday's gain, he trades at 85 Ugandan shillings, and that's after a 1.92 Ugandan shillings gain by the company after trading over 5,700 shares. Bank of Centum Investment also had 301.85, and that was a 12.02 Ugandan shillings increase in price, decrease matter of fact. Centum went down, but there was no volume still on Centum Investment Company. Cipla, Quality Chemical Industries, the only pharmaceutical company on the exchange, had a total price of 70 shillings and didn't also have any movement, and rather didn't have any trading done, and also didn't have any change in pricing at all. DFCU Bank came in at a 547 Ugandan shillings closing price and did not also trade any volumes as well. Whereas East African Breweries also came in at a 4,943.75, and that is a 1.76 decline in price. Equity Bank at 1,653 was a gainer on the market yesterday. And then you're looking at Jubilee Holdings at 8,384 Ugandan shillings, came in as a gainer, as the top gainer yesterday after gaining by over 400 Ugandan shillings. Then we had Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways came in as a gainer as well at a 0.73 gain after closing the day with 121 as the opening closing price, but rather still there was no trading done on Kenya Airways, and the movement was entirely due to other factors besides demand and supply. MTN Uganda traded the highest volume, like we have said, and maintained its price at 190 Ugandan shillings. National Insurance Corporation traded nothing but maintained their price of 6 Ugandan shillings as well. Whereas Nation Media Group at 634.38 had an appreciation of 5.38 Ugandan shillings. New Vision Printing and Publishing Company at 1,155 Ugandan shillings did also have any movement, and neither did it have any changes in price on the entire stock market. Whereas Stanbic Bank Uganda, as we all have already seen, came in at a closing price of 21 shillings after gaining by about 0.98 Ugandan shillings on the stock market. Then we had Uganda Clays Limited at 19 shillings, and there was no gain, there was no movement, but the prices were maintained at 19 Ugandan shillings on Uganda Clays. Wumeme maintained its price of 2,011, that is 2,000.11. Wumeme maintained its price of 200.11 shillings after the closure of the markets yesterday. At the end of the day, we had a total of just about 212,307 shares that were traded on the stock market, corresponding to a market value of 35.8 million Ugandan shillings. Compared with the previous day of trading, there was a 7% improvement in the volume, and the 235% improvement in the turnover as well. And the current market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange is 22.9 trillion. Now, the all share index went up significantly this time round by over 19.35. I think one of the highest daily gains we have seen on the entire market since, of course, the beginning of the year. The points closed at 1,331.76, with a 1 week gain going up also to 1.65% and a 4 week gain of 6.8%. As well, the local company index was in green. It soared up by 0.76% to reach maximum points of 278.21 points there on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Definitely a very, very wonderful performance so far, and we are hoping for the very best as well today on the stock market. Now, let's look at a very interesting report here from, of course, Bank of Uganda. Now, Bank of Uganda is saying that the interest on interbank lending has increased by 1.2%. Now, the interest charges that are charged between banks have sharply increased as the central bank seeks to maintain price stability. The rise in the interbank interest rate has a large implication on the commercial lending, which has already registered a slowdown due to the high cost that, of course, is related to the central bank rate increment. In the quarter to July, that is the second quarter of the year 2022, the money market rates maintained an upward trajectory attributed to the tighter liquidity conditions. Bank of Uganda indicates that interest rates for the 7-day of interbank lending increased to 8.2%, and that is in the quarter up to July, from 6.8% in the first quarter of the year 2022 in April, which while the overnight rates increased to 7.9% from 6.5%, and from the 3 executive months, the central bank has increased the policy rate by 2.5% as it presses ahead to curb the highly volatile economic environment. The central bank rate, a key determinant in the movement of the commercial bank interest rates, has risen from 6.5 in May to 9% in August. Already, according to Bank of Uganda, more than half of the commercial banks have indicated that they will increase their interest rates in the quarter to September due to the movements in the central bank rate. However, during this period, Bank of Uganda noted that the weighted average shilling lending rates declined to 16.3%, up from 18.3% in May, due to big loans to prime borrowers in the trade and manufacturing, which were offered at a rate below 10%. Credit to manufacturing, trade, transport and communication, real estate and personal lending declined, while marginal increases were observed in agriculture. Now, similarly, in the debt market, that is the treasury bonds, the central bank has said that the primary and the secondary market yields increased for all the tenors as investors factored in the tight global financial conditions amid high domestic inflation expectations. In July, the shillings depreciated, however, by 1.2%, capping a year-on-year depreciation of 6.7%, driven by the tightened global monetary conditions and the worsening terms of trade in the country. That is a report of Bank of Uganda. Of course, because of the central bank rate increment, every single interest rate has seen an upward movement. Looking at the interbank rate, you're also looking at also other rates on bonds and bills. So definitely right now it's a time for you to look out for the debt market, and especially during this time. If you're an investor, remember financial markets offer you chance to lend to government, to lend to corporate bodies. But in this particular period of inflation, as we see increment in rates, these are particularly key interests to very seasonal investors. Remember, you need only a minimum of 100,000 to be able to purchase a bond. You can find this with your commercial bank if it is primary dealer in the bonds market, or you can use your stockbroker if they can also offer the service after consultation, of course, with that particular stockbroker. Thank you very much for joining us today. You've been a very wonderful viewer. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Up next is Makubuya, Mr. Makubuya with UG Tukole. Stick around, keep watching Smart 24. Have a good time.